Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Kalaye Sundarakaram Sadaika Priyadarshanam Ajnana Nashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidharam Yasya Smaranamatreena Jihvayam Vardate Swayam Mahamantrastam Bhajami Muralidhara Deshikam Premamritam Yo Murali Ninadaihi Shri Krishna Rupena Puravarsha Adyapi Soyam Muralidharakyo Pushnati Premna Bhuvanam Saharsham Kirtite tu Mahamantre Tatra Virbhuya Tatshanam Suprasanno Bhavedyastam Premika Varadam Bhaje Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijana Mohanam Vyatyasta Padam Vanamala Darinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtitam Premika Varadam Ashrayeham Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkha Shamanaha Tam Namami Harim Param Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Sadguru Nath Maharaj ki Jai. Greetings, friends. Welcome to another session of Answers and Beyond. I begin by offering my pranams at the holy feet of Guru Maharaj, by whose Bhagyaji Kripa I sit before you today. Thank you very much, Singapore Namadwaar, for organizing this, and thank you for joining in. The question that we will take today is from a friend who holds a good position in his work. He's from Singapore, and this is the question. He says that I work in a corporate setup and I'm equally interested in satsang and spirituality. The time that I have now, because of this lockdown, I try to spend it as usefully as possible. On one side, I'm spending it to honing my professional skills. I read the biographies of successful people in the world of business. I analyze the traits. And I'm also spending an equal amount of time listening to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayanam, the life histories of great bhaktas that are spiritually enriching. I'm doing both. This is my question. At times I feel that there is a conflict between the two in terms of the traits that the successful people in the world, in business, are expected to possess, as opposed to what is described in the Bhagavad Gita, in the lives of Mahatmas. How do I resolve this? What can I do? A very practical question, a question that may be running in the minds of many friends who find themselves in this situation. I will quote the words of Sri Swamiji and tell you that the path of Bhagavata Dharma, the path of Bhakti, this Nama Sankirtan that we perform, has been bestowed upon us by our scriptures, by the great rishis, keeping exactly this in mind, keeping our situation in mind, in this age, Kali Yuga, that we live in. Keeping our lifespans, keeping our situations at work, with the family, the many things that we have to do and balance. Keeping all of this in mind, this path has been bestowed with a lot of foresight. Therefore, this path ideally would help us to balance both. This is what Sri Swamiji would always say, as of countless Mahatmas who have shown this path in Kali Yuga. Guru Maharaj would often say that Look at how even Bhagwan does things when he incarnates, when he takes human form. Let's say when Bhagwan came as Lord Sri Rama or as Sri Krishna, what did he do? When he takes a human form, he does what he has to do. If you take the life of Bhagwan Sri Ram, it is the same amount of planning. He amasses an army. He finds a way to build a bridge, the Ram Setu, to go from here to Lanka to rescue Sita Mata. Everything is done in a very practical manner. After all, it is Bhagwan, isn't it? And he knows it himself. What can he not do? All that would need is his sankalpa, and yet he does everything in a very practical manner, playing by the rules of this world. There is meticulous planning, there's a lot of strategy involved. In fact, if we read elaborately about the war, there's so much of planning, there's so much of strategy going into it. For a moment, we even forget who we are dealing with here. It is that Lord himself, Bhagwan himself. The outcome is known. After all, it's he. It's not another person in the world who's trying to achieve something without knowing what the outcome is. And yet, he takes every step practically. In that situation, what needs to be done, he does it. Take the case of the great war of Mahabharata, what Bhagwan Sri Krishna does. On one hand, it is God and God himself, isn't it? Purnam Brahmam Sanatanam. God, the absolute incarnation of the totality of God, that supreme being. And yet, look at what he does with his beloved Arjuna, the greatest warrior. First, does Bhagwan not know the outcome of this war? Of course he does. He knows everything along the way, and he knows how it's all going to end. And yet, in that war field, the great war of Kurukshetra, stands Arjuna, and Bhagwan is there right with him as his charioteer. And Arjuna is confused. He does not know what he's supposed to do. Because on one side, he knows that this is a war and he's faced with this situation and he has to fight it. Because that is how justice can be achieved. On the other hand, there's all the sense of dharma and ethics within him that also trouble him. He wonders, why should I fight this? After all, these people, they're all my relatives. It's all family. What sort of happiness will I get by defeating all of them and killing all of them and then sitting on a throne? How is that going to help? Should I rather just leave? Should I just become a monk? Should I renounce the world? All these confusions are there in his mind, isn't it? The mind of the mighty Arjuna. And Bhagwan is there with him. It's the same Bhagwan that is going to bestow the Vishwarupa Darshan, where he shows that it is he and he alone that exists. He shows that the entire creation, sustenance and destruction is happening within him. It's all according to his will, and he shows that he is that Bhagwan. That's who he is. He's going to show that to Arjuna. But at that point of time, when Arjuna is in that confusion, what does he do? He's not doing anything miraculous. He's not doing anything of that sort. He's not making a prediction. He very beautifully addresses all these doubts, answers all these questions, and that is the greatest treasure of all, the Bhagavad Gita that we've been bestowed with. That conversation. If we look at it from another point of view, the best possible counseling that can ever be done. That is really what Bhagwan does. He tells him why he should do it. He tells him that running away from that situation is not the solution. You have to do your duty. When you're here, this is what you do. This is the right thing to do. You're fighting for your rights, what's rightfully yours, and you have to do it. That's how you look at it. And that is dharma. He shows and he clarifies the doubts that rise in the mind of Arjuna, and finally gets him prepared to fight the war. That's how it happens, isn't it? That's how even Mahatmas do it. We would have to live with a Mahatma or read the biography of the Mahatma, say that's been written by somebody who lived with the Mahatma, to understand this. Because on one hand, you will see that the Mahatma knows it all, even before it happens. He knows exactly how things are going to eventually end. And yet, when an event happens, they also subject themselves to it. They walk in that path very practically. They do what they have to do and allow things to unfold on its own. That's the beauty of it. And we need to bear in mind that they know the outcome and yet they do it practically. That's how God and Mahatmas lead by example. They show us that when you are in a situation in this world, like I have to be at my workplace, where, as this friend has put, the friend is working in a corporate setup and I have to do things. It's after all that Bhagwan that has placed me there. So there I need not have all of these doubts. I have to do what I do to stay sharp and to be successful, but without losing sense of dharma. This is what our scriptures would say. This is what the Mahatmas have told, and this is what Swamiji would advise as well. Be ethical, be truthful and honest to the extent possible in this age, in these times, but you have to do what you have to do, is what he would say. Whereas, when we are in satsang, this beautiful path called Bhagavata Dharma has been shown, keeping in mind our situation. It does not say that your mind should be clear, you should not be tainted by worldliness, you should stay away from all of this, you should renounce it, because being in it will certainly taint us. It is inevitable. On one side, I have to spend 9 to 5 at workplace, competing with people, doing all kinds of things. On the other side, I'm expected to be absolutely untainted by all of this. That is not going to happen, not for me. It may be possible for the great ones, but not for a commoner like myself. But Bhagavata Dharma has been bestowed upon us, keeping somebody like myself in mind. So it does not expect such things at all. It does not expect anything extraordinary. There's a very beautiful Kirtan of Guru Maharaj, a Madhura Gita. It goes, Angum Yingum Uraladiru Maname Kannan Kadalgalil Nilayayiru. Guru Maharaj says, he addresses his own mind. He says, "O mind, do not wander here and there. Hold on to the holy feet of Krishna." It's a very beautiful kirtan in Tamil. And trust me, it sounds a lot better when some satsang friends with better musical talents sing it. In this Madhura Gita, in the concluding lines, Guru Maharaj gives a very beautiful point. Sometimes it would appear that these words are kind very casually, but they really are not. There's a lot of significance as to why such an expression is used, why such a word is used. It is true in the case of the works of all Mahatmas. Guru Maharaj would say, Patratru ulagil palagiyiru Muralidharanaye sada patriyiru. Muralidharan there refers to Bhagwan Sri Krishna. It's the mudra also. Patratru ulagil palagiyiru, underline. He does not say that vittu vidu, ulagai vittu vidu, patratru ulagai vittu vidu, meaning he does not say do not be bound to this world and renounce. He says patratru ulagil palagi iru. Iru means remain in this world. Remain in this world, but do not be bound. Seems like opposites, isn't it? Sounds like one of those things that's easier to say and very, very difficult to follow. How do I remain in the middle of all of this and yet be untouched? If only I could do it, I would not be in this situation. It's not possible for me. It is not so easy for me to renounce and be in the middle of everything. How can that happen? On the other hand, if I'm asked to leave everything and go to a solitary cave, that is also not possible. How can I do it? I'm already in a situation here. I have a family to support. I have work to do. There's so many things. So what is that practical solution? It seems like an impossible deal. When we talk about this, it's like you can either go forward or take a step behind. So how do we go about it? Renouncing is not as easy as we think it is. These words sound fanciful. It's possible for the ones with that sort of dispassion, the great ones, who I bow down to. But for me, it's not easy. When giving up the sense of attachment to a good cup of morning coffee is impossible. The whole world will come crashing down if I have to compromise on that cup of coffee. Why am I talking even about renouncing the world? But that's me. So how is it possible? How am I going to achieve that? If that is the only way, it is typically going to be the fox and the grape story. The fox tries to jump again and again to taste the grapes, but it's unable to reach, and then finally it has to say that these grapes are sour and give up. That's the only way to go about it. I also would have to say that these are not for me, this goal is not for me, it's for the others. But that's not how it's meant to be. Every one of us is meant to reach that goal. So how do we go about it? Patratru ulagil palagi iru, Guru Maharaj says. Remain in this world, but don't be bound. How will it work for me? It will. Because in the next line, he gives a very beautiful answer to that as well. That is also taken into account. He says, Muralidhara sada patrir. If I have to loosen my grip on something, because I'm always used to holding on to things. I hold on to a million things. Everything around me, I hold on to it. I'm bound. That's my nature. And then it's easy to say, just leave it all. Easy to say, but nearly impossible to follow. So how do I do it? If I'm given something to hold on to, which is the best of the best, and after I hold on to that, everything else looks a shade duller. It is not as impressive, it's not as sweet, it's not as interesting, then that would be the only way to go about as far as I'm concerned, because I, by nature, have to hold on to something. I cannot simply quit. Like the great ones, I don't have that sort of a dispassion. I don't have that sort of a vairagya. So he says, Muralidhara sada patrir. Hold on to his feet. Meaning, that is the essence of Bhagavata Dharma. When I hold on to his feet, then automatically I leave everything else, or everything leaves me. Because this is the most attractive thing. Remain in this world, padagire. Hold on to his feet, meaning think of God. Remember his name. Remembering his name is nothing but thinking of God. That's all you need to do. Don't have to do anything extraordinary. Don't have to wonder how the worldly life and this are two opposites. They really are not. Bhagavata Dharma shows a way to live in this world and also think of God. Bhagwan in this yuga, in this age, expects just that. He does not expect me to leave the world. Muralidhara sada patrir. Just think of God. That will do is really what Guru Maharaj says in this kirtan. So Bhagavata Dharma is the way. It's that path that shows us the perfect way to balance both. To remain in worldly life. When I'm at work, I have to do what I have to do. I have to stay sharp. I have to be competitive. There's no point confusing what I wish to practice in my spiritual life in that situation. Am I supposed to go soft here? If I'm being very strict, will I be hurting another person? That's not a question that should come to me. In that battlefield, I'm already there. I have to fight the war. As Bhagavan shows Arjuna, I have to do what I have to do. This is exactly what is shown. But all I also need to do is stick to Dharma as much as possible. Be ethical, be truthful, and think of God. That's all God expects out of me in Kali. Because that is how the situation is. It's not the fault of the individual. It is how the age is kalau kalmasha chittanam papatravyopajīvinam vidikriya vihinanam gatir govinda kirtanam kalau kalmasha chittanam. It says that in this age of Kali, the minds of all people is tainted. That is how it is. We don't have to point to person A or person B or person C. That's how it is. He says, Gatir Govinda Kirtanam. Just chant his name. In other words, remember God and lead a worldly life as ethical as possible. That will do. Nothing else is needed. We need not confuse these two things at all. The paths are never confusing. It is I who confuses it, because the rishis have given this path with so much of foresight, keeping my lifestyle in mind. Guru Maharaj would narrate a beautiful anecdote to explain this better. There was a man, a very successful man, a wealthy man. He had a huge family, his children, grandchildren, and every year they would all join together on the occasion of Deepavali. That was one occasion for the whole family to come together and celebrate. They would spend time for a whole week together up till Deepavali. A few days before Deepavali, they would all go to the store to buy clothes and shop. So he would take all of them, up to the tiniest kid. They would all go and shop. Whatever they want, they would buy. So he took all of them. That year also, they went to the best store and they were buying like they were buying the whole store out. Everybody wanted a different dress, what was trendy, and they all got it. And it was time to settle accounts, pay the bill, get the stuffs and leave. As he was doing it, the shop owner said that your bill adds up to 99,995 rupees. If you can add another 5 rupees to it, it becomes 100,000, 1 lakh, and then you are eligible to get this gift, which we have. So why don't you buy something for that amount? Immediately he looks around at his family and he says, if anybody wants to get something, go ahead. People have pretty much bought everything that they wanted, including handkerchiefs, including shoes, socks, everything is bought. There's really nothing more to buy. He asks around, he asks everybody, every single person, do you want to get something? Do you want? Everybody says no. It's almost like he's run out of ideas about what to buy, because everything is bought. Then all of a sudden somebody comes up with the idea. Why don't we buy something for the Ganesha that is sitting in the compound wall of our house, the tiny shrine? You'll find Ganesha like that in India. In a tiny shrine, there would be an altar on the compound wall. Why don't we buy something for him? And immediately he says, let's buy something. And he tells the storekeeper, the store owner, he says, get me something that's exactly that amount, not something very expensive, so that I qualify for that 100,000, and a tiny piece of cloth that looks pretty cheap as well, because that's how much you will get for that cost. He buys it and everybody's happy. They get the gift and they all come home, and on Deepavali day everybody is dressed like a king, because that's a kind of dress that they bought. And then he takes this plate, he puts that tiny little piece of cloth, that poor quality cloth that he has bought for Ganesha, Lord Ganesha, and he keeps some fruits in it, and he gets the whole family assembled. He makes sure that all the neighbors notice that he's doing it, and he parades everybody. They go there and offer it to that Ganesha with all sincerity. With all sincerity. People around are saying, none of us even think about such things. Look, he also bought a piece of cloth for Lord Ganesha. What a great bhakta, what a great devotee. Our man is very happy to hear all these compliments as well. What would we think in that situation? If we were to for a minute imagine what Ganesha, Lord Ganesha would think in this situation. You should ask him, isn't it? Look at all of you. You're dressed like royalty, but look at what you have bought for me. It was not your intent to buy this. It's not as if you remembered. I was not even part of the list. You bought this because you had to get that gift. And everybody had bought what they wanted already. There was nothing left to buy. So due to lack of options, you bought this. This is how Bhagwan should react, isn't it? Is this right? You're posing now like as a great bhakta and everybody is complimenting you. I'm really upset with you is what Ganesha should say, isn't it? But he does not say that. Ganesha is shedding tears of joy. That's how I would think, because I am who I am. But Bhagwan is shedding tears. He says, what a great bhakta. I understand how his life goes. He has so many businesses to manage, so many things to take care of, at work, at home. There's lots of pressures. In spite of all of this, in one corner of his mind, he still remembers me. That is enough. I will take care of him. Ganesha is very happy. That is the answer to this question as well. In the world, we have to do what we have to do at work, when we have to fulfill our duties with the family. And we need to remember God as well. That is all is expected. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience. Sadgurunath Maharaj ki Jai. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.